Today we will conclude this conversation, Bhajagovindam. But before we get into the topic for today, let us also set the context for today's discussion. The true self, the true reality of all of us. When I say the true self, the true reality, the existence is the common ground for all beings. For us to say, I am seeing, I am realizing, I am experiencing, the first and foremost question is our own existence. This existence is the true self. In our awareness, you see the things. This existence cannot be different for different people. Because this existence itself is not an object. So then, this true self has to be non-dual. It cannot change from one person to another person. Because the existence, the bodham, cannot vary. And it cannot be again identified with the personal identification. When I say personal identification, it's the body, mind, intellect, sense, etc. But unfortunately, what is happening is the true self is identified wrongly as the ego. The ego is the non-expanded form of the self. When I say non-expanded form, the self covered with the attributes, different attributes. That includes the body, mind, intellect, senses, the vasanas, the traits, all the influences, the life influences. So here, when we introspect about the ego, we can see that ego is primarily oriented towards the prakriti. When I say prakriti, the body, mind, intellect, senses. And the self is not at all related with the prakriti. That is where in Chatusloki Bhagavatam, Anvaya Vediregabhyam Etsyat Sarvatra Sarvada. There is no connection with the Jadam. Sat has no connection with the Jadam. But for the Jadam to exist, Sat has to be there. Sat will exist in the absence of Jadam. For the Jadam to start functioning, the Sat Vastu should be there. The pure spirit should be there. That's where in Srimad Bhagavatam, the principle is called as Satyam Param Dhimahi Sada Nirasta Kuhagam Satyam Param Dhimahi. The ever effulging, the self-luminous, we cannot call it as an entity, but self-luminous, the ever effulging reality. This is the true spirit. So that spirit is always there, because irrespective of the situations that we undergo, including the nights, day and nights that we all have in our life. Assume that tonight we all are sleeping and the next day morning we are not aware of the past. Right? What will happen? You have taken a deep sleep, you have slept for 10 hours. But after the sleep, you are not aware of your past. So this truth is always aware of itself and is existing and aware of whatever else exists. For example, I am undergoing different emotions, or I have undergone a deep sleep, I have slept for 8 hours. What was not there? My active participation. When I say active participation, the body, mind, both were dormant in the deep sleep, meaning they did not exist. Or in the awakened state, being aware of the body conditions. So these are always changing. Body conditions are changing. You are undergoing the different states in life, including the 3 avasthas that we are undergoing daily. Avasthatrayam happening there. So it means there are certain things which are existing, which are coming, which are going, which are dormant, which are dominant. But there is something that is always aware of what is happening. And you don't need to get a light to see that light. Sada nirasta kuhagam satyam param dhimahi. Always effulging. So you don't need a separate light. For you to see whether you exist, you don't need to go and see in front of a mirror whether you are existing or not. It is shining by itself. But unfortunately, this self is wrongly understood and we think our ego as the self. So what one has to do is, one has to uncover this, meaning unity and distinction between the self and ego. This has to be very clear. This is the fundamental path. This is the fundamental step. Maybe even when we see the coordinate geometry, you know that the axis, x-axis, one side of the axis to the other side of axis. Let me also relate the ego and self. In this context, ego as the one side of the axis and self as the other side, the opposite end. When we start our self-inquiry, when we start from the ego, as you know, it's a number system. It is continuous, right? -1, -2, or -2, -1, 0, 1, 2. When you start progressing towards the positive direction, that is basically when you start departing from the ego, because the inquiry should start from the ego, right? And when you go towards the positive direction, at the other side of the axis you will see the self. So ultimately this journey will culminate to the realization of the self. So let us also understand what is ego. When we say ego, ego is a part of the mind. Ego is a part of the mind. Ego is a kind of a capability that is trying to express the individuality. When we say I am I am so and so, I possess something, it is basically the mind is trying to express the individuality. We call it as ego. Or sometimes we say we derive satisfaction in life due to me, or I could achieve it, right? Or we say what is the right word, mamakarat, giving the sense of mine. And when we structure our personality, or when we talk about our personality, it is very essential. I am so and so, I possess, I inherit, I derive, I created. So ego is the mouthpiece of the personality. And what constitutes the ego? As I mentioned, ego is the layer that is playing with the mind. And you understand that the mind's association is always towards the external things. Various factors, not only the kind of inherited characteristics that we possess, including the vasanas, the kind of body that we have, the capability of the body, the build of the body, mind, the biological emotions, many other factors, right? So we can say these all factors are constructing our personality. And where the real construction happens, the real constructions happen in the mind. And ego works in the plane of mind. And we also know that our eye sense is always changing, right? When you say, I possess this, I was having this, I had this, I will do this, the construction of the personality is also changing. So when we say drifting from the ego to self, drifting is all about you start observing the ego and see whether there can be, or can we give enough weightage to the ego. When we start thinking that is it really wise to give weightage to the ego, we are trying to attenuate the intensity that we are creating. What will happen? Let us practically think. For example, a musician who is performing 2 hours of a stage performance. What is the kind of or what we can say that the kind of emotions that are there in the musician, or what is really making the musician to perform in front of an audience? What is happening? Tell me. Or maybe when you are deeply involved in doing a job, maybe very precision surgery you have to do, assume. What is happening there in that context? Tell me. Hello? Are you all there?
Yeah, sorry.
So what is happening when you are doing something? When I say deeply involved, absorbed, the real flow is happening, right? It is basically, you can say, the spontaneous forgetfulness is happening there. The play of ego is very less. Or do you think when you are singing, oh okay, I'm the great singer, and you all are not knowing this kind of art? Is this the kind of attitude a singer will have?
Oh,
This is basically the deep involvement or absorption. You are forgetting. You are basically undergoing the state of forgetfulness, right? What is really happening in the deep sleep? We ourselves are forgetting. We ourselves are dipping those assumed personalities. All the objects are getting plunged into that reality. The distractions are not there. Thoughts are not there. What is happening is the maximum happiness in the deep sleep. So, the point what I am trying to make is when we attenuate, see, attenuation happens when we start thinking about the ego. What is the real or what is the reality behind the ego? That is where the attenuation starts. And I mentioned the kind of deep involvement or the forgetfulness. In those contexts, we are enjoying the maximum. So, then is it logical to say that when we start attenuating or when we start giving less importance to ego, and the ego is all about the thread that is pulling into multiple dimensions. At one point you are an entrepreneur, at one point you are a father, at one point you are, so multiple things are pulling you to different things. The sense of different individualities, and that is where kind of a personality is created. So ego is the kind of a cohesion. Ego is a kind of a set of threads that are pulling different elements of the individuality together. And these individualities are coming from different objects. I am wealthy, I am healthy, I am 6 feet, I am angry, I am happy, I am always happy, I am positive, I hate, I don't like such. These all are the identifications with different objects. And ego in our action is changing from moment to moment, because our mind is very famous for having different ideas, a number of ideas, infinite ideas. By looking at anything, you form ideas, and the ego will appreciate. There is no limit for the objects and ideas that ego can create. So when you start thinking about the ego, what is the true or what is the truth behind the ego, we are in the right direction. We are going towards the forward path. And that path will ultimately lead to the realization of the self. Go forward until the ego discovers the self. That is the real personality. Ego is all about vibhakti. Last time also I mentioned, one of you asked what is vibhakti. Vibhakti is all about creating assumptions around the objects, creating assumed personalities. So when the vibhakti goes, the true self starts reflecting in us. And this true self is always there. There is not even a time that our true nature is not in us. It is always there. This true nature is always there. But due to the play of egos, due to the vibhaktis that we create, we are not able to make progress in life. So that is where Bhakti Yogam is called as Vibhakti Nasha. Vibhakti Nashayaja Bhakti Yoga. So when one starts understanding what is Vibhakti, what is really or what is the truth behind the Vibhakti, Vibhakti is all about assumed personalities. So one way Bhakti is called as surrendering the ego to the Lord. Surrender all the false identities and eagerly praying, eagerly surrendering to that God, to reach that God, to reach that self, to reach the true identity. That is where Narada Bhakti Sutram says, Swaswarupa Anusandhanam Bhakti Rityabhidiyate. So when one starts knowing the self, so Swarupa Anusandhanam, that is called as Bhakti. In another way, this deep surrender in the higher reality, the deep surrender in that God is also Bhakti. Because that God is the ultimate self. But otherwise, what happens if the ego is not controlled? When the ego is not tamed, when I say controlled, when the ego is left for its own ignorance, that self-knowledge will not happen. Ego will go towards a different direction. We can say now the ego is in -2. Instead of going towards the plus, the positive axis, the ego will drift towards the wrong direction. So when the ego is left to its own ignorant ways, the direction is completely wrong. The direction towards the self-knowledge does not happen. So what one has to do, the ego has to be trained. Ego has to be trained to dissociate, we can say. Dissociate from whatever ideas of attachment comes in our mind. Let the things happen. If an idea is needed to do a function, to do a work, let the idea come. Let the idea get fruitioned as a work. Leave it there. Don't gather the states. So that is called as the dispassion. It is not about not having any creative thoughts, not like that. Create the thoughts, execute the action, decouple from that. Dispassion should be there, vairagam should be. So that the ego will not get allowed to, or the ego will not get the further boosting. So when we start doing this in life, the wheel of the ego identification, wheel meaning the virtual ring, right? The virtual identities that we create, the wheel of the ego gets removed. So the seeker will be able to go towards the right path. Right path is all about the journey from ego to the point of self-realization. So self-knowledge, this is the only topic in our Vedanta, nothing else. This is the highest conceivable perfection that one can have. The self is all pervading consciousness. Everywhere this consciousness is there. Self is the substratum of everything, the ground of every experience. Before we get into Bhajagovindam, let me use the Mandukya Upanishad mantram, the 7th slogam. Nanta prajnam na bahi prajnam na ubhayada prajnam na prajnanaghanam na prajnam na prajnam adrishyam avyavaharyam agrahyam alakshanam ajindyam avyapadesyam egatma pratyasaram prapanchobashamam shantam Shivam Advaidam Chadurtham Manyante Sa Atma Savijneyah Nanta Prajnam Na Bahi Prajnam Na Ubhayada Prajnam Na Prajnanaghanam Na Prajnam na aprajnam adrishyam avyavaharyam agrahyam alakshanam achintyam avyapadeshyam egatma pratyayasaram prapanchopashamam shantam shivam advaitam chaturtham manyante sa atma sa vijneyah. Before I get into the explanation of this mantra, the second mantra of Mandukyam, sarvam hi edat sarvam hi etat brahma ayam atma brahma soyam atma chadushpa. So this brahma, this atma, sarvam hi edat brahma. So this brahman is only one and everything is brahman. I am atma brahma and I am also that brahman. Soyam atma chadushpad, and that brahman, that atman is called as the fourth state. So you must be thinking, what is this notation of fourth state and what? We all know that we have three states: waking state, dreaming state, and the deep sleep state. In the waking state, the mind is associated with the external objects, interactions in the world, and the reality in the waking state, the consciousness is called as Vishwan. In the dreaming state, the mind is dominant. The mind creates things. And the Jivan is called as Taijasan. And in the deep sleep, where the objectlessness is there, there is the deep sleep experience coming. There is an experiencer there also. And this Jiva in the deep sleep state, in the Sushupti, is called as the Prajna. Vishwan, Taijasan, Prajna. And the reality, the truth, here called as the Turiya Avastha or the Turiyan, the pure awareness. And this awareness is beyond all these three states which we mentioned. Which are those? Waking, dreaming, and the deep sleep. Vishwa, Taijasa, Prajna. Beyond all these three states, the Turiya Avastha. That is why Turiyan is called as, this reality is called as the fourth state. And we see in the waking state, the consciousness is external. In the dreaming state, the consciousness is internal. But is this consciousness internal or external? It is neither internal nor external. And this consciousness is not either the waking or the dreaming. Neither we can say it's internally conscious nor externally conscious. That is where the mantra says Nanta Prajnam, Na Bahi Prajnam, Na Anta Prajnam. So this is not associated with the internal. This consciousness is neither internal nor external. Na anta prajnam, na bahi prajnam. So this, then what is this? Then it is not even the simultaneity of the consciousness. Na prajnana ghanam, you cannot quantify this like a mass of consciousness or the consciousness distributed across different continents or different species or different beings. Cannot be quantitative. it cannot be massified or quantified. Then it is not internal, not external, it is not the simultaneity, it cannot be objectified. Na prajnam, not so is consciousness. This is not the knower also. Then you may think, oh, next is na aprajnam, and it is not the absence of consciousness. It is not the knower. Then it means it is the knower also. It knows everything. Adrishyam, it cannot be seen, it cannot be visualized, it cannot be seen with your eyes. Adrishyam avyavaharyam, you cannot have any sort of dealings with, like I touch, I smell, I see. You cannot have such dealings or objectifications with that. No relationships can be maintained. In the Chatusloki Bhagavatam, the same term, Anvaya Vediregabhyam Yatsyat Sarvatra Sarvada. You cannot be, you cannot objectify this. You cannot associate this truth with objects. Agrahyam, cannot be graspable by the senses. The power of senses cannot grasp this reality. Agrahyam achindyam, this cannot be thinkable by the mind. It is beyond the comprehension of the mind. Achintyam avyapadeshyam, this cannot be described, this cannot be thinkable, indescribable. You cannot talk the glory of the consciousness with your tongue. You cannot complete that. Ekatma pratyaya saram, the essence of consciousness, of the selfhood and the oneness. You need to realize that the Atman is the consciousness, bodham. Prapanchopashamam meaning it is not, or we can say it is beyond all the conditions. Prapanchopashamam, because when it is beyond all the objects. Prapanchopashamam, Shandam is, it is inherently, it is peaceful. It is the positive, peaceful state, non-relational peace. Shandam, Shivam, it is Shivam meaning auspicious. It is Mangalam. There is no Dukkham, it is always shining. This truth is shining, this truth is the source of happiness. This truth is the source of everything. Advaidam, it cannot be dual, it is non-dual. Egam, Advaidam, Shivam Advaidam Chadurtham Manyante. So, Chadurtham Manyante meaning this is the fourth state of consciousness. Don't think that is the fourth state in a numerical way. First state is this, second state is this, third is this, fourth is the consciousness. Not like that. It is beyond the three states that we undergo. So we need to start appreciating this as the fourth state and this as the substratum of all the states. The relative states of waking, dreaming, sleeping happening in this substratum. It is all about transcendence of the three states, the three avasthas, waking, dreaming, sleeping. So transcendence of these three states to the fourth state, that is called as the chaturtham manyante sa atma savijñeya. Now savijñeya meaning this is to be known, this is the purpose of life. So ego to self, the departure from ego and reaching the self is all about jiva expiring into Ishvara. Jiva moving towards the absolute Brahman. Jiva realizing the true self, the Jiva realizing the true potential. Jiva drifting away from the ego, all the assertions with the identities that the mind is creating. Knowing, observing, and with knowledge, the right Vedantic knowledge. So here the Vedantic knowledge, we can call it as the true art of living. With the right knowledge, you reaching the destination. And this knowledge is the or we can say it's the irresistible strength that has to get cultivated in us. And this knowledge only will help us in life. Whatever skills, whatever degrees, whatever certifications, etc., those all are good. Those all are for the sake of transactions. But for the true life, because all those skills we possess, we claim certain identities, we keep on changing the identities in life. And if we associate with all those identities which are always changing, then there is no end for mystery in life. Complete misery will happen in life. So that is where we have to have this knowledge equipped. What is the knowledge? The self-knowledge. Knowing about the true self. Operating with that power. Operating with that strength. With that, let's get into Bhajagovindam. We will conclude the 4 verses. The last 4 verses. Verse number 28. Sukhada kriyate Rama bhoga Paschadhanda sharire roga Yadyapi loke maranam sharanam Tadapi na munchadi papacharanam Bhajagovindam Bhajagovindam Govindam bhajamudhamade. So here I will not go into literal meaning. Here one should understand that the weakness of humanity is the materialistic tendency, trying to achieve the materialistic possessions. Only that. This is the only weakness. Weakness of humanity is being in the clutch of materialistic tendencies. Always Sukhada Kriyade Rama Bhava. So indulging only in the sensual pleasures, dedicating our life to sensual pleasures, dedicating only for the power in life, prayers, or the wealth generation, or sensual pleasures. Paschad Handa Sharire Roga. At some point of time, the body is a manifestation, body will undergo the 6 states. Bhava Vigaram Asti Jayade Vardhade Vivaranamade Apakshiyade Vinashyati. The deterioration of the body will start, body will get diseases. Without this self-knowledge, you will not be able to climb the hill. It is going to get difficult after. Climbing up hill is difficult because there is no strength. The strength has to be there within, and one has to find time to understand the strength, because this is a secret strength. Like how you train the muscles. You need to do the training, then only the muscles will help. Similarly, this knowledge is there within us. This is why it's called secret. So, materialism at one side and our own higher nature, that is the real reality. Materialism, we need it. I'm not saying we can run away from that. Good to have, but materialism cannot be the must to have. The must to have should be the higher purpose in life, knowing the reality. Otherwise, what happens is when we meet problems in life without the inner strength, without this knowledge, you will not be able to cope up in life, because things will change in life. The time of glory will not exist always. Glories will come, go. What you meet in life is destiny, but how you meet them is your own free will. So that is where the knowledge, the self-knowledge is very, 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 very important. So here the verse 28 in a gist, it says, the man follows the easy path of materialism and plunges into the sensual pleasures called as the samsara dukkha. In spite of the knowledge, that materialism will give. So what is the knowledge? The knowledge is all about materialism is something that cannot be depended upon, because money will come when you start earning money, and when you chase the money, there is no end for that. But the body will not wait. The body will also go towards the chudi. You must be thinking, I am scaring. This is the reality. But human tendency is refuse to give up the materialism. Verse number 29, Artham Anartham Bhavaya Nityam Nasti Tada Sukhalesha Satyam Putradavi Dhanabhajam Bhidi Sarvatraisha Vihitariti Bhajagovindam Bhajagovindam Govindam Bhaja Mudhamade. The external pleasures, materialistic objects, including wealth, possessions, family, will not provide you the true security, will not provide you the true happiness. The genuine happiness and fulfillment in our life should come from within, and there is the source within us. When one is looking at the money, the fear is always there for losing money. Correct? When one is really wealthy, the fear is there in terms of not losing the wealth. Though money is there is no happiness, because always there is an uncertainty driving in life. What will happen to my money? Who will possess it? Will somebody take this? Or how should I give this to next? Will they misuse it? I'm not saying that we should not have money in life or wealth in life, etc. Don't just chase those things. Whatever is needed, let it happen. But there is an ultimate purpose in life. Don't miss that. And that ultimate truth can only bring the incessant happiness, the real meaning, the so called as wholesomeness in life, the purnata in life. In one of the Malayalam kritis, the Jnanapana, there is a mention that അർത്ഥം എത്ര വളരെ ഉണ്ടായാലും തൃപ്തിയാകാ മനസ്സിന് ഒരു കാലം 10 കിട്ടിയിൽ 100 മതിയെന്നും ശതമാകിൽ സഹസ്രം മതിയെന്നും. So meaning when we get 10 then we will aim for 100. When we get 100 we will aim for 1000. There is no end for them. So our dominant thought should not be just chasing the materialistic things in life. Whatever is destined to happen, whatever is designed in this life to come, let it come. But there is a higher purpose in life and we should aim for that. Next verse, pranayamam pratyaharam nityanitya viveka vicharam जाप्य समेद समाधि विदानम कुर्ववधानम महदवधानम भजगोविंदम भजगोविंदम गोविंदम भज मूढ़मदे. So control your prana that is presiding over the body, because prana is subtle compared to your gross body. Then the next subtle element is the mind. So you should have pratyaharam, withdrawal of mind from the sense objects. Train your mind. Allow the mind not to get settled in the material objects, because operation in the material world is needed, but settling there in the material world is a problem. So that is where you need the pranayamam. Do the breathing, do the yogic practices, do the pratyaharam, do the withdrawal of mind from the sense objects. Nitya nitya vastu vivekam, discrimination between what is real, what is not real, what is permanent in life, what is not permanent in life, what can be dependable in life, what cannot be dependable in life. Be very 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 clear. Nitya nitya vastu viveka vicharam. Japya sameda samadhi vidanam. Japam is all towards bringing more concentration, avoiding distraction. Japam of what? Repetition of God's name. Do the japa sadhana, do the sahasranama archana, do the sahasranama japam. Think about God, think about the higher reality. Whatever you do, always surrender to that. Include God as a partner in everything. Include the higher reality in every endeavors that you are doing, so that there is always a companion for us who is able to guide us correctly. So with that jabam, what do you need to do? You need to do the samadhi. Samadhi is all about dhyanam, the meditation. So do these things: pranayamam, pratyaharam, nitya nitya vastu vivekam, japa sadhana, samadhi, dhanam. Do it with extreme care and steadfastness. Let it be the part and parcel of our life. Whatever you do, karmam, through karma yogam, karmitva nashaya cha karma yoga. Let the karma yogam helps in terms of not developing ego, because all I do for the God. Let the vibhakti go. Through bhakti yogam, let all the assumed personalities perish. Now the samadhi and jabam, it's all about tuning the mind. Raja yogam, let the yoga nasham happens. Let the detachment from the unwanted identities happen through the Raja Yogam, through the clean mind. So let this be a part and parcel of our life, so that the journey from the ego to self will happen, and that is the ultimate purpose in life. Verse number 31. Guru Charanambuja Nirbhara Bhakta Samsarat Achirat Bhavamukta Sendriya Manasa Niyama Devam Drakshasi Nija Hridayastam Devam. Guru Charanambuja Nirbhara Samsarada Achirada Bhavamukta Sendriya Manasa Niyama Devam Trikshasi Nija Hridayastam Devam. So seek all the blessings of the Guru Parampara. Ishvaro Guru Ratmedi Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurte Namah. So Ishvara and Guru Atma, these all are essentially one principle. Here Guru meaning the one who dispels the darkness. Andagara niroditvat Guru rityabhidiyat. Gu is andagara, darkness. Ru is the removal, the nirodha, the dispelling. The one who is able to dispel the ignorance, the darkness. Such a person is Guru. And that Guru need not be a person. Guru is a tattva. And Guru Tattvam reflects in the form of Ishvara Kripa, reflects in the form of the scriptural blessings. Bhajagovindam, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. Guru in the form of the composer of this composition. Bhajagovindam. Who is that? Bhagavan Bhashyagaran Adi Shankara Bhagavad Pada. So let that Guru help us. Let that Guru bless us. Guror anugrahenaiva puman purna prashantaye. Let that Guru bless me. Let that Guru give all the blessings. Let that Guru direct me, drive me, show me the right path. Let the Guru be the Deshika, the one who shows the direct path, right path. So let that Guru samsarad ajirad bhavamukta. Let that Guru dispel the ignorance and bring the knowledge to liberate me from the samsara dukkham. Let me get the mukti from the samsaram. Sendriya Manasa Niyama Devam. So let the God who is inside me, who is ever shining, ever effulging as the consciousness principle, bless me to have the realization, have the sakshatkar. This is a prarthana, this is a big prayer. So ultimately, think about the Govindan, Bhajagovindam, Bhajagovindam, Govindam, Bhaja Mudhamate. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina, Sarve Sandhu Niramaya, Sarve Vidrani Vishyatma Kaschidduka Bhavit. Kayena Vaja Manasendriyarva Buddhyatmana Va Prakriti Swabhav Karomi Yadyat Sagalam Parasmai Sarvam Narayana Yed Samarpayami. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.